Greetings and welcome to this special four-part series of Association Matters titled Oceania Insights on this official PCAAE podcast for conversations on governance, leadership, and impact in the association sector. We are your hosts. I'm Bobby.
And I'm Emily. The topic for today's podcast is Beyond Compliance, Governance Excellence in Australian Associations. Good governance is often associated with compliance, policy, and regulations, but the most successful associations understand that governance excellence goes far beyond meeting the minimum requirements. It is about creating a board that is strategic, aligned, and accountable and focused for long-term impact.
So, in this episode, we explore how Australian associations approach governance and what association leaders across the Philippines and Asia can learn from their experience. Joining us is John Peacock AM, CEO of Associations Forum in Australia, who shares practical lessons on board effectiveness, governance structures, and the critical distinction between governance and management.
John is one of APAC's most experienced advisors to associations and charities and a thought leader in the not-for-profit sector. John's work with associations was recognised in 2021 Australia Day Honours list with his appointment as a member AM of the Order of Australia General Division for significant service to the associations and not-for-profit sector through a range of initiatives. He founded the Associations Forum in 2004, which has become the largest network of associations in Australia and has led its expansion beyond Australia through conferences, training, and consulting in many different countries. John also established Governology, an advisory firm specialising in governance of associations and charities in 2022. The firm expanded to the UK in 2024. John strongly believes that the freedom to associate is a core foundation of democracy.
So, hi, John. Great achievements indeed, and good to see you after a while, although, of course, virtually this time. So, thank you for gracing our podcast today. So, let's start our conversation. Our first question would be, from your perspective, how do leading associations in Australia define governance excellence beyond mere compliance with regulations?
Hello, Bobby, and hello, Emily. It's a great pleasure to be with you today. I'm pleased that I've been invited to chat to you today because I strongly believe that governance is a lot more than compliance, which is which is certainly a good thing because people want to be involved in the more dynamic side of governance, although compliance is all part of it as well. And I'll start by saying that I think governance relates to the smooth running by a vigilant board of directors, and the board should know strategic issues about where things are in the organisation, and they should have the capacity and the competence to act quickly if there's an urgent matter that comes up. I'd go a bit further and say a couple more things that in terms of compliance, you need to be aware of the responsibilities and governance. You need to be aware of the general responsibilities, and it's a good thing for your organisation to have someone who is what we call the chief governance officer involved. Now, that's not a commonly used term. Sometimes organisations call it the company secretary, but it's a bit different to the honorary secretary who might get the job for a short period of time, may not have much background in governance, and they won't be able to add a lot of value to it. But it is certainly a profession to steer an association along the lines of good governance in that way. Sometimes the chair of the board may not know exactly what to do. Hopefully the chief executive will, but we believe that that's a good layer, a good background to be able to do governance beyond just the regulations by someone who's skilled in that area. And the last thing I guess I'd say is that sometimes associations get in bad habits. They don't know that the way they've been doing things for decades is not best practice. That's the way they've always done it, and they've never had an external person to come in and look at in that way. So governance will include a review of the organisation to say, are we doing our governance well? Let me say one more last thing, which is you need your governance in place and to be smooth running without it causing any problems. It's all to do with the organisation of the election of who can vote at a general meeting members, the board. That all has to be in place, and it shouldn't be it should all be in the background, but it needs to be ready to respond if there's something unexpected happens. So sometimes you've got to be able to. The expression is going. Let's go and grab the Constitution. We've got a crisis. Let's go and grab the Constitution. The Constitution needs to be well written so that if there is a problem or a issue with the governance of the organisation, that will give you the answers. So thank you, Bobby. I hope that's a good intro comment from me.
Yes, thank you, John. Just for our viewers and audience about Constitution, do you mean the Articles of Incorporation?
Yes, I do. Yep. They're called different things in different countries. Here's the list. In many countries, they're called constitutions. In many other countries, they're called articles. In some countries, they're called bylaws, and in some countries, they're called statutes. And there's probably another 3 or 4 terms around the world. But let me the governing document. It's the document that decides who is in charge. It is a lot to do with the control of the organisation. The members, I guess, have the ultimate control by removing a board of directors. That's quite a powerful reserve power to have. But then the governance should be by the board, but the board should delegate to a chief executive. So that's how. So and all of those processes should be in the Constitution or the articles or the bylaws or the statutes, depending on what nation you're in.
Thank you for clarifying that, John. Emily?
Excellent. Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. Just being in the habit of doing those regular reviews and renews and not falling into the day-to-day ongoing process is really important. I think really good point there, John. Our next question is, what governance structures and practices help boards remain strategic, effective, and future-focused? Maybe you've got a story or a case study you can share on this one.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. And I'll relate it to your opening comment about keeping an eye and reviewing constitutions or articles or statutes or bylaws, as you mentioned, Emily, and say that it's a really, even if 2 associations swap each other's rules and have it and read each other's rules, they'll say, oh, that's what you do, or that's what you do, or that's interesting. And everyone, they're all going to be different by size of the board or the composition or lots of things there. And what's happened is over a lot of years, and I'll say a little bit longer on this before coming to your question, is that some of the years, over a number of years, people patch up their articles, and they say, "Oh, we made a change back in 1977, and we made a change back in 1988," and it just becomes a bit of a hodgepodge of rules. So it's a really good thing to get someone else, our firm Governology or our firm Associations Forum can assist with that, but it is a really good thing. It's a health check. It's a health check for your association. Now, your question about being strategic and future focused, really the key thing about this is strategic plans. Now, the governance role of an organisation should be to have a clear strategic plan, and the plan should not be set by the board of directors, and it should not be set by the chief executive. It's going to be a group piece of work. We've had a lot of experience with strategic planning, and back to your comment about an anecdote, what we see sometimes is that a chief executive says, "Oh, the board weren't very interested in the strategic plan, so I gave them the plan, and they all endorsed it. That's fine. But they didn't own it." So what you need to do, and Bobby and I, we've done some work together with PCAAE over the years, but what you've got to do is you've got to show the plan so the process is that you need to make sure that you have a good draft plan to go to the board, but it needs to be checked by the chief executive and his or her staff. Then it goes to the board for tweaking and refinement. But you really hope that your board of directors is going to support the plan and give some suggestions and some refinements to it. It's a little bit of a worry if a board of directors says that is absolutely not the direction we're going in at all, and we need to start again. So if that's that case, you've got a serious directional problem for an organisation. But boards need to be strategic. I think you've said strategic, effective, and future focused. They have to think of where the organisation is going, and when you're on the board, you're representing the organisation. You've got to leave your day job hat behind or your personal interests behind, and you have to think about what the future of the organisation is. But the best way to do that, the way to do it, the only only way to do it is to have a strategic plan that is written down. Everyone can talk about, oh, we discussed this before, but you've got to have a document that you can go back to and check, and it's clear, and then it's not ambiguous in that way. So that's what is good. And then the final thing I would say is that you've got to make sure all the staff and all the members know about what we're doing too. So different people don't need to know all the details of the plan, but you've got to be able to tell everyone that, hey, we're an association with a clear direction. We've got a chief executive and a team who run things. Let's hope that associations are able to afford staff, and that the board is the guiding light. They are the meet every 3 months group of people who will keep an eye on things. But they are busy people. Their role is governance. You don't want too many cooks. Everyone trying to run the organisation. That's why you focus on the chief executive to run it. Thank you, Emily.
Right. Thanks, John. And I remember exactly that when we had, I think that was more than 10 years ago, when we had this strategic planning with PCAAE. And what's clear even to this day is the purpose of the organization. And if you do not embody it, remember it, live by it, then that's where your organization will, go astray or something like that. But thank you. Yeah.
And Bobby, I will add to that, and I'll say the purpose of the organisation is key. That has to be at the top of the strategic plan. Sometimes it's called the objects, sometimes it's called the mission, sometimes it's called the vision, sometimes it's called the aim. There's lots of different terms for it. But then the harder thing is deciding who does what, and the harder thing is that the board of directors need to know that it's not their job to implement it. Their job is to see that it is being implemented by others.
Right. Okay, thanks, John, for your insight. So our third and final question, from your experience, what governance lessons from Australia can associations in the Philippines and Asia adopt to strengthen their organizations?
Bobby, I think because I've been fortunate I think I've spoken to associations in 16 or 17 countries, the principles are the same universally, which is very, very important. That we've talked already a bit about the role of the board is of governance, which is more of an oversight role. It's more of a vigilance role. We've talked about having strategic plans. That's good. But a few more points is that the board need to be aware that they can't micromanage. I had a phone call this morning from an established and very competent chief executive whose incoming president was getting a little bit too involved in things. And you need to know that the role of the board should be to give support and not get involved unless things go off the rails. So everyone needs to know their roles. Then the board should not meet all. Let me say another thing, which is that the board shouldn't be a hard job being on a board of directors. It should be harder if you're the chair of the board or the president, because you've got the responsibility. But generally, it should mean I'm on the board. I meet every 3 months. That's great. Yeah, and I'll read the minutes and I'll do my work, and there's not much else to do. Now, there might be other extraneous projects that you're involved in with the association, but being on the board shouldn't be that hard. It's a bit hard, as I've said, it's a bit harder for the president or the chair, depending on what the head of the board is called. So then the other thing we say, to finish off on something that sounds less important, less exciting, make sure you've got good minutes about what is said. We really think that's important. Organisations need to see the formality. The board meetings are formal meetings. They have legal implications, and you've got to be able to prove what the board decided at that meeting. If there's ever a legal action, a court of law can come and say, show us your minutes. Now, no one else has the right to the minutes. The members don't have the rights to the minutes, but a court of law does. So one of the little extra tips we'd give you is make sure that you prepare your minutes as if someone's going to care eventually. Let's hope that no one ever bothers reading them until it's the 100-year anniversary of your organisation and people enjoy going and reading what they were talking about all those years ago. But it's really important to do these things. So there's quite a lot of things in governance, and I'm pleased to say that there's certainly governance has a lot more to it than just compliance.
Definitely. Wow. Thank you for all those insights, John. We really appreciate you being here and answering our questions and the other ones that we threw in there as well, a couple of curveballs. But thank you very much for joining us. As always, we wrap up our podcast with 3 key takeaways, and I'll do my best to summarize the 3 from the session today. So number 1 is governance excellence goes beyond compliance. So I heard this at the start of the call, where governance excellence is not simply about following those regulations and the minimums. It's about having a vigilant, capable board that stays focused on strategic issues that can respond quickly when critical decisions are needed also. That the strong governance depends on dedicated governance professional that you touched on, and that's often called the company secretariat. But, somebody who ensures best practices are embedded across the organisation. Regular external governance reviews are highly recommended to help identify those blind spots, stop the patchwork quilt being created, I guess, and drive continuous improvement. Number 2 that I heard there was the importance of strong structures that are enabling that strategic leadership. So effective governance starts with well-designed, updated and reviewed constitution that clearly defines maybe the membership rights, governance responsibilities, and board composition. Supported by a well-developed strategic plan, these structures can allow boards to focus more long-term, while giving the CEOs and the management the clarity and confidence, I think, of implementing those organisations' priorities successfully. And the third one was distinguish governance from management. So one of Australia's most important governance lessons that you touched on was that clear separation between the governance and the management. So boards should concentrate on that oversight, the strategy, majority of organisational issues, while the CEOs should lead the operations and the teams, and that separation is important. Rather than just micromanaging, directors should be remaining vigilant and future focused. And you also left us with that real good gem at the end about the quality of board minutes for transparency and historical regulations. So thank you so much for all those insights, John. It's been a really valuable call.
Thank you, Emily. Yes, thank you, Emily, for your excellent summary as always. So thank you again, John, for gracing our podcast and for sharing your insights and expertise. And thank you too to our audience for joining us in Association Matters, where governance, leadership, and impact come together. We believe that when associations thrive, societies rise. This podcast is brought to you by the Philippine Council of Associations and Association Executives, MEMBIS, AMS, and Pricing for Associations.
Join us in our second episode of Oceania Insights as we cover the topic Leadership for Impact, Building High-Performing New Zealand Association Executives. Subscribe to our podcast and visit the PCAAE website for updates and full episode notes. Until next time, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Bye all. Thank you.